Oh, really?
That's
That's
cool.
cool.
Little bit more. There we go. All right, so tonight we're going to finish up the fruit of the Spirit. And the one we're going to talk about tonight is long suffering. Does anybody know what the common word for long suffering is?
Self-control.
Nope. Patience.
Living for God, is that,
Huh?
or long suffering for Christ?
Well, long suffering, we're going to talk about what long suffering is, but they're interchangeable. The word long suffering and patience are the same. Okay? So, I was informed tonight that we are not on 2 Kings, we're going to be on first what?
First King.
1 Kings, not 2 Samuel, 1 Kings. Didn't we discuss that, like,
I will turn back to March.
but isn't that the book where like every paragraph was a different king took over and he did well and he did evil in the eyes of God and
This is where David is sick, and he went going to declare himself kings.
well, we'll look at it.
I think that's what it is.
All right, so tonight as we start looking at long suffering, let's go to the book of James in the New Testament. For those of you that have a pen and are ready, it's James chapter 1, verses 2 and 3.
I want to watch you it almost. What's on your big dog?
Cool,
Want me to read it?
I do.
My brother, count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptations, knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience.
Stop. What's the last word in that last verse?
Patience.
Okay, so in order to find out what patience is, let's go backwards in that verse. What produces patience?
Testing of your faith.
Right?
Okay. I'll tell you a story about patience. When I first got saved, I had no idea what that was really all about. And I was and still am to some degree a type A personality, and I realized that I needed to learn some patience. So I prayed for patience for over a year. And in that year, oh my Lord, yeah, you're giggling, you know what happened. My whole life fell apart. I got divorced, I had no place to live, lost all of my possessions 3 different times. Lived out of my car for a while. So finally, I go to a Bible study class and my teacher laughed at me and he said, "Brian, don't do that." And I said, "Why not?" He said, "When you pray for patience, what you're praying for is stuff that will make you patient, which means you're going to have trials and tribulations. So when you pray for patience, be prepared. That prayer will be answered." Remember when I used the phrase that Satan is not after the guy sitting on the bar stool? Okay. He's after the one that's carrying the football for Jesus. So when you pray for patience, and God answers that prayer, he's going to let Satan catch you for a few minutes. Everything falls apart. And you have to trust and be patient in Jesus. And that's what builds your faith. Now, for those that have gone through that and been through that, when you come out on the other side, what you learn is that was an invaluable experience because you draw on that often. And you say, wow, if God can bring me through that, he can bring me through anything. Right? However, the going through it really sucks. I mean, it really does. It's terrible. I'll tell you the picture I have in my mind of the last, after the third time this is the third time of losing all of my possessions. At this point, I had one dresser. Now, the furniture that I had was all teak wood. Okay, for those of you that know, that's kind of special. I had a teak wood dresser, hand carved, very valuable. I was moving from my apartment, moving in with a friend because I had lost my apartment. Okay, and so we put it in the back of his truck, and as we're leaving, I said, "Shouldn't we tie that down?" He said, "No, I'll go slow. It'll be fine." And we're going from Chatham to Springfield. Okay, just as he gets on the expressway, he hits the gas. The dresser falls out of the truck, lands on its hood on the top of it, upside down, and scoots down the highway doing 30 miles an hour. That was the last vestige of anything I had from my old life. Completely gone. And I was like, wow, all right, I get it. I get it. So, my point is, patience is built through tribulations. And I don't remember exactly how he says it here. Testing of your faith.
My brother, anytime I did have patience, and I thank God for that patience, because when I was young, I didn't mind, being patient. But now since I'm older now, I'm short patient. And when I was young, I didn't mind being patient, helping, doing this and that. But since I'm older now, it seems like the patience, I probably really need now because I'm dealing with, kids and other issues. But when I was young, I had patience with them.
Yeah.
But I don't know what happened now since I'm older.
I think I'm the opposite. I've gotten a lot more patient than what I used to be.
Well, and
When I
it's
was
normal.
young,
It's normal for people to get a little bit more patient as they get older just because of experience. You learn that life isn't going to end because the stoplight lasts an extra 30 seconds and the jerk in front of you slammed his brakes on it. The world is not going to end because that happened. When you're 19 and that happens, you want to pull them over and beat the heck out of them. All right? So, part of that is normal. But the spiritual gift of patience. Now, what does the first part of that phrase say? Count it all joy. When what?
You fall into diverse temptations.
Or various trials.
Face trials.
I was not counting it as joy when my dresser was going down the
yeah.
highway at 30 miles an hour. All right? So what does he mean here, count it all joy?
Because if you're getting through it, then your faith is getting stronger. So I would look at it, if you're getting through it and relying on God and your faith, that's how I look at it.
Well, let's-
Kind of like at it.
He gives the answer right in the same sentence. Let's leave out the middle part. Count it all joy when you fall into various trials. Testing of your faith produces patience. So the ending, you should count it all joy because you will attain patience or long suffering. Now, I don't know, I haven't done this in a while, but a lot of times when we hear the word, when they talk, just an observation I made, when they talk about people, it's patience. When they talk about God, it's long suffering. It's the same thing, okay? People often ask, even non-Christians ask, well, if God is so, if God is so righteous, then why does he let the world go on and sin continue? Why doesn't he just end it all and move on and start over? Because God is long suffering in that he doesn't want anybody to go to hell. He's willing to wait.
I read
And wait.
that.
And wait, and wait,
I'm so glad he does.
and wait.
That's
That
it. And he did destroy the world at one time, but only left Noah and his family, so so.
Right, and he regretted that he did that. And he left the rainbow to remind him. So, I mean, even God needs a reminder. But that's where the spiritual gift of long suffering comes in, so that we will wait and wait. And an example of that is when, and I can't remember who it was, asked Jesus, well, how many times should I forgive my brother? And he says 7 times 7. It doesn't mean 490 times. It means an indefinite amount of time. You forgive and you forgive and you forgive and you forgive, just like God forgives you.
As long as something, okay, like a person wants to get married again, then if the person tell you, wait a while. And when that person wait a while, is it because to make sure that that's what they want, or what? Can you explain that? When they tell you, well, wait a while.
No, I can't explain that. Some of the most successful marriages I've ever known happened in a week. And some of the most unsuccessful, if they lived together for 5 years and then got married. I don't think you can draw that parallel. I think it depends on the people, the commitment, and where God is in the relationship.
Ours happened in 4 months,
When I was
25 years later or something.
Yeah, yeah.
They suggested waiting a while, like 2 years before you start another relationship, only because you're not taking the same baggage into a new relationship.
Okay.
That you're not
Well,
leading to somebody who you just got out of a relationship, you didn't see to go to that. That's just some of the things that they had suggested.
the rule of thumb that I believe that marriage counselors use is however long you were married the first time, you should spend half of that amount of time single before you remarry. Like if you were married for 10 years, wait 5 years. If you were married for 20 years, wait 10 years. Simply for her, the reason she gave you.
6
I did.
years?
I waited, I was married first time 20 years and I waited 10 years. And it's been a while. I know it
But
was
he
one of the
didn't
last.
lay there,
Yeah.
he left you. Actually, both of them left you. You didn't make the marriage, they did.
But the reason is basically the same as what she said. It has nothing to do with spiritual. Now remember when Isaac sent his slave to go get the wife for Jacob. Jacob never met her before. And they were together his whole life, or her whole life. She died first. And never met her before. So, you could make an argument either way you want, and I think it depends on the people and the situation and where God is in the relationship. So, tribulation produces patience. That's the primary thing I want you to get out of this. Any questions? Okay, let's go to, again in the New Testament, Luke chapter 8, verse 15.
May as well let him read it.
Sure.
But the ones that fell on the good ground are those who, having heard the word with a noble and good heart, keep it and bear fruit with patience.
I love this part.
What was the verse?
8:15.
Somebody didn't bring a pen.
8:15.
Chapter 8, verse 15. Okay, so what are we talking about here? This is one of my favorite
Oh,
parables.
yeah, I like this on the good soil.
This is called, I call it the four soils. What does the Bible call it? The parable of the soils. This is the reference that I use whenever I teach on, if you go to any church in the country, and for everyone that claims to be a Christian, 1 out of 4 is saved. The other 3 are not. This is the parable, the basis for that teaching. Now he goes through and he explains, and we don't have to worry about my interpretation or a preacher's interpretation. Jesus gives us the interpretation right here. He gives the parable, and then the disciples say, well, what does that mean? And Jesus says, if you don't understand this one, you're not going to understand anything I teach you. So here it goes. I'm going to teach you. So he's talking about the word is the seed, and where it falls in the soil is the preparation of the heart. And here's an interesting thing. Are you there yet? Are you there?
Heaven.
Okay. Here's another interesting thing that you can draw from this. When you are witnessing to somebody, one of the biggest fears we all have is that they're going to ask me a question I don't know, right? Based on this parable, there is only 4 possible conditions for that person's heart. One of them is going to be total acceptance. One of them is going to be indifference. And the other 2, who cares?
What was the first one?
The first one is going to be total acceptance.
Oh, it's a.
That's the 4th soil. The first one is going to be total indifference because before the person even accepts it, Satan's going to steal it away. And the other 2, they're going to pretend to accept it, and then weeds are going to overtake it. And the other one is they will accept it, but the cares of the world get in the way. So what does it matter? The point is, out of the 4 possible conditions, everybody's heart is in one of 4 modes. So no matter who you're witness to, you got a 1 in 4 chance of leading to the Lord. If they're not saved, you got 1 in 4 chance. That's why I used to pass out crosses when you would bring people to church or to Bible study. Because I knew that on the average you had to ask 4 people to get 1 to accept. So that means you put up with 4 no's to get 1 yes. And sometimes it was more, sometimes it was less. But if you are continually bringing people to class, you're getting a whole lot of no's. But it's the same leading people to Jesus. When I was in the insurance business, my boss got a chalkboard and he would write up different, 100 lines on the board. Like you do 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the line makes 5. Well, he would just make straight lines all the way across. And he would do 90 of these. And he would say, if you do 3 presentations a day, times 30 days, that's 90 presentations. He said, I don't care how good you are, how bad you are, the numbers are the numbers. Now your numbers may be better or worse than somebody else's, but your numbers are your numbers. If you could close 1 out of 5, you will make 20-some sales that month. Now, they may all be at the end of the month, so you may have 3.5 weeks of no. But the numbers are the numbers. And it's the same with leading people to Jesus. The Holy Spirit is not going to lead you to talk to somebody unless they're part of the numbers. You may not lead them, but the numbers are the numbers. And here's an interesting thing. And I didn't get this for the first couple of years that I was there. But he said, a no is just as important as a yes. And here's why. No means you're 1 step closer to the yes. So in that business, if your number is 1 out of 4, and you start the week with 4, and you get 1 out of the way, you're 1 closer to the sale. Now, bad news is if you get the sale right off of the bat, that means there's a possibility you're going to be 7 no's before you get to the next yes. That's where people get burned out. And it's the same with leading people to Jesus. If your number is 1 out of 4, and you lead the first one to Jesus, it might be 7 more witnessing to people before you lead the next one to Jesus. But just keep at it. It reminds me of a story of E.L. Moody. Does everybody know who he is? E.L. Moody? Okay. he promised himself that he would witness to one person every day for the rest of his life. And he did, he was truthful to that his whole life. The one time he was on vacation, or no, he was out of town staying in a hotel, and it was after midnight, and he was undressed in bed, getting ready to go to bed, and he said, "Oh my Lord, I didn't witness to anybody today." He jumped up out of bed, got dressed, went down on the streets, and walked up and down till he found somebody, led him to the Lord, went back to bed. The numbers are the numbers. The question is, are you willing to be the witness? So when here in this verse, but the ones that fell on the good grounds are those, now the good ground, remember, is the heart that is totally accepting. The ones that fell means the seed. Are those who are you done? All right. Having heard the word with a noble and good heart,
So, again,
Because he.
yeah.
So she hung up.
so when the word falls on the right heart, and having heard the word with a noble and good, would you like to go outside and take that?
Nope, took it off.
Okay.
Took the battery off. Took the battery off.
Sure did.
Okay, so the seed, which is the word, so the seed, the word that falls on a good heart, who having heard the word with a noble and good heart, keep it and bear fruit with patience. There's a Christian song, and I don't remember the title of it, but it has something that's something like, "What if I'm 17? What if I'm number 17?" Something like that. And the whole genesis of the song is, if it takes 17 people witnessing to a person to lead them to the Lord, and you're number 17, and you don't witness, what happens? Does the 17 start over, or did you miss a blessing? You probably missed a blessing. So here, he's saying, if you hear it with a noble and good heart, you keep the word and bear it with patience. Now remember, it's already talked about 3 different circumstances of the heart when it hears the word. The first one is Satan takes it before it has any chance to do any good. Totally oblivious. The other one receives it enthusiastically, but the cares of the world take it over. Third one is it receives it, it tries, but it's on shallow ground. There's not enough there to keep it going, so it dies. It grows and dies. But when God's word falls on good soil and it grows, it keeps God's word with a good and noble heart and produces fruit with patience. It bears fruit with patience. What does to bear fruit mean? We're talking about the fruit of the Spirit. What does the fruit mean? Because it says, having heard the word with a noble and good heart, keep it and bear fruit with patience.
So if you keep the word,
All right, but what's the fruit?
the word.
Fruit is
And what does patience have to do with bearing fruit? This is very, I had no idea, but never mind, I'm going to answer. Remember before class started, I was telling you about the witness and you have to use it with patience. So the two examples that I gave you, that is an example of fruit with no patience. Remember when we started the study at the beginning and I asked you how many of you have grown garden or flowers? And I said, what if you grow rhubarb and green beans, which grows faster? Remember? Fruit does not grow without patience. I can remember as a kid, my mom and dad would plant a vegetable garden. And we worked on it all day Saturday and Sunday. I went out Monday morning to see if anything grew. I went out Tuesday. I went out Wednesday. And after Wednesday or Thursday, there was no sales. I go, it died. But the following Monday, the green beans showed up. The following Thursday, the carrots showed up. And still, even after they showed up, we had to wait the season until they grew and matured. And that's why when Paul was talking about young Christians should not be in positions of authority. They have the fruit. If they're saved, they have the fruit. But they're just baby carrots and baby green beans. You need to back off and wait until they have a chance to mature and go to fruition. That's why he says, bear fruit with patience. Now, in our workaday world, the question is, well, how long does it take?
That's a good question.
And the answer to that is,
Everybody's very different.
it takes as long as it takes. The Bible says when Paul, on the road to Damascus, when he got sick, and he went in and had the things removed from his eyes, he tried to preach a couple of places. After that point, Jesus took him out to the desert and taught him one-on-one. Now remember, Paul was a Pharisee. He was one of the smartest guys in the whole country as far as the law goes. And Jesus took him out to teach him about Christianity. And it varies in time. He lived out there with Jesus somewhere between 4 and 7 years. I know for me, and I've told this story 100 times, but after I got saved, I spent 10, 12, 14 hours a day, 7 days a week for years, just reading God's Word. And reading commentaries to try to understand it. I really don't know how many years it was, but I know I did that for like, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 years. Then I went to school for 4 or 5 years. And then I taught about 2 years after that, out of town. And it was another 2 years before I taught in California. And from that point to this point, it's been, I don't know, somewhere between 12 and 13 years. Now the people that I was telling you about, one became a pastor within 6 months. The other one became a pastor within, well, I don't know how long of being saved, but went to school for a year and then became pastor the next year. 2 quit. So for them, those two, Paul was right. It needs to produce fruit with patience. So even though you're saved, and even though you've received the fruit of the Spirit, and even though it's growing, and even though you've changed, and even though the old man has died and the new man is living, and even with all of that, you can't produce fruit without patience. And producing fruit produces patience. Because patience is fruit. All right? Okay, in the New Testament, let's go to the book of Romans. Chapter 12, verse 12. Actually, go back to 10 and start at 10.